Greetings and welcome to the Introduction to Physical Science. In this video, we are going to look at the Geometric Optics lab simulator and how that's used for some of the labs in the class. So let's get started. Now the simulator starts out here with the link, and you can click on the play button and that will load the main Geometric Optics screen. Now this is going to look at two different things. It'll look at lenses and mirrors and how images are formed with them. So let's go ahead and take a look at each of these briefly. When we open the lenses, we see the simulator comes up and there's a lot of different controls here. I will mention some of them briefly, and then we can take a look at what we might do with this for a lab. So if we start off in the upper left-hand side, there can choose the image that you want to use, and that can choose from the various different images there that are available. You can also lock it. The lock just means that if you hit the lock button, it only can go left and right. So it avoids you accidentally lifting the object up off the plane here. So you can lock or unlock that as you need. These shift between the two types of lenses. You can have a convex lens, which is showing right now, or a concave lens. And then you have various measuring tools over here. You have some rulers and some other markers that you have as well. In the middle is your main screen that you have. You'll have your object over here, and then the focal points in the yellow, the lens or mirror when we look to the mirror section, and then your image over here. Now the image can of course end up in different places depending on where we're moving things. Down here you can look at the rays that you're looking at, whether you want just what's called the marginal rays. You can look at the principal rays, and you can look at lots of rays if you want to look at all different ones, including here ones that completely miss the lens, or you can turn them off altogether. Again, the lab worksheet will tell you what you need to do with those. If it doesn't say anything, just leave them alone. Corrections that you have here will allow you to adjust the radius of curvature, which is how curved the lens is, so it can have a much smaller radius of curvature or be much bigger radius of curvature. And you can see that adjust where the image will be and where the focal points are. We can change the index of refraction. That changes the type of glass that is used in the lens. So it can bend things less or it can bend things more depending on a different index of refraction. And we can change the diameter of the lens, how big the lens is, from rather large to rather small. And different things will change different parts of this. Now, when it starts out, focal points will be marked what you'll want. You want to check the mark for the virtual image because otherwise it will hide images that are not real images. Labels is also a good one to turn on because it tells you where everything is. It shows you the optical axis there going through the center of the lens, and it labels the focal points there in the F. It labels the object, the image, and the lens itself, in fact, reminding you what type of lens it is. Second point you don't need unless it tells you to. That allows you to put a second point there that can then be moved up and down to watch how the rays move. Now, we can also do the same kind of thing for mirrors. So let's take a look at mirrors as well, because the concave lens is pretty much the same. But if we take a look at the mirrors, you have three different types of mirrors. You can have a concave mirror, you can have a convex mirror, or you can have a flat mirror. And as you'll notice, most of the controls here are very similar up on top. With these, you can only move them left and right, so you don't have to worry about locking them to move them up and down. And you can have the same thing here with the rays. Here, there is no index of refraction because no light passes through the mirror. It reflects off the surface. So there's just a radius of curvature, which can be changed, and a diameter, which can be changed. And the other points are all exactly the same as we see. Now, for the lab, what I have you do, and let's go back to the lenses just for convenience here, we'll look at changing the distance. Now, you'll see that it's going to refer to several different things. It's going to refer to the focal point F. It's also going to refer to a center of curvature. Now you'll see that the center of curvature is not marked here. We're going to have to put that where it belongs because you'll need to be able to measure that for the lab that I have you do. And that involves measuring points relative to where the center of curvature is. Now the center of curvature is always double the focal length. So let's move our object out of the way a little bit here and take a look at this. So the focal length is here. And if you want to know how far that is, we can take a quick look and measure it using our ruler, and you'll see that it is exactly 80 centimeters. So here we have 80 centimeters, meaning that the center of curvature would be at 160 centimeters. So we can set 160 here. And then we can mark this if we like. We can take one of our little markers here and say, here is the center of curvature. So while it does not mark it directly, you can mark it. And then when you're doing the lab, what it's going to ask you to do is to pick a point farther than the center of curvature. It's going to ask you to bring it into the center of curvature and ask some questions about that. It's going to tell you in between the focus and the center of curvature, at the focus, and then closer to the focus. So it will do the various different things, and it'll have you look at some different things like what type of image is there? Is it a real or virtual image? What is the orientation? Is it upright or is it inverted? What is the magnification? Is it larger or smaller or the same size? And where is the image formed? So do you find it, where do you find it relative to the rest of the parts here? Where do you find it relative to the focal point, relative to the center of curvature, or relative to the lens itself? So you'll have some various things to do and then some questions based to ask on it. So that's mostly what you have to do. Most of it for what I do. You may use it for some other things. You won't have to change too much these other sections, and you will have to watch when you do those. So if you change things like the curvature, you notice that the focal point changes. Well, if you change the focal point, you're also going to have to change the center of curvature. So if you're changing the radius or the index of refraction, those are going to affect where the center of curvature is. The diameter will not affect that. You can change that. Notice that the focal point remains exactly the same. Changing the diameter will not affect anything. But that's very important when you're trying to do the measurements because the center of curvature is not directly measured here, and you have to just mark that in yourself, doing that quick measurement using the rulers that are provided to be able to do that. And once you do it once, you'll do it with various different setups. You can do it with various different lenses, various different mirrors, and then there'll be some questions to answer afterwards. So that concludes this video explaining the Geometric Optics Lab Simulator. We'll be back again next time to look at another lab video. So until then, have a great day, everyone, and I will see you in class.